Welcome to the In Peace We Rest podcast. Today's conversation is going to be very exciting because we kind of got on a roll before we started hitting record, and we were like, okay, everybody pause, let's push the button and get this conversation started. I feel like there's a lot of energy, a lot of momentum in this topic that we want to talk about. We're very excited. However, before we do, I think it's really important for us to kind of just anchor in as we do every episode. Maybe we'll keep this one short because we're really excited. So who would like to lead us in, like, dropping it in?
Let's just take a minute. I'll steal it for just a second because I'm also really excited for this podcast. And I just came from taking I was in an energy with a bunch of kids too. So I'm like, ah. So it'll be good. So let's just go ahead and find your seat. Like, really breathe into the booty. Sometimes when you only have a minute, just breathing down into whatever's holding you to the earth. Whatever it is that's connecting you. So if you're walking right now, whatever that is, find your lowest point. What is anchoring you down into the earth?
Don't let it be your gas bill if you're driving.
Yeah. If you're driving, I like to think about the seat in my car. And this time is going to be a little different because I really want you to feel the seat you're sitting on and your butt and feel how those two things come together. So there is the seat, there is your butt, and there is this space between. So just breathing into this space between your butt and the seat. And we're just going to, I like to now start to feel that seat become a bit more of a bowl. And my booty can sink down into it a little more. Just breathing and settling your body. And we're just really feeling how our seat starts to cradle us. The earth starts to hold us and support us in safety. You are safe to be right here in this moment. You are safe to be held right here in this moment. Just a couple more breaths here. Letting your whole body start to melt down. It doesn't necessarily mean collapsing, but just allowing you to settle into the structure of your bones. Just a few breaths here. And when it feels good, you can open your eyes.
Thank you.
That's welcome back. I'm really curious as people listen to this, how much they see the difference in us from the first 2 seconds to oh, they've dropped in.
Ah,
They have arrived.
They've come. Because I feel we all are coming from different things. And even before Rox said we got into conversation, we were not recording whilst we were stuffing our face with lunch.
Well, it is funny. We have one of our really dear friends who's here with us, and she has two little kids that are like 2 years old and 7 years old, or like 3 and 7. And so, like little wild ones running around. You had the kid meditation this morning. So yeah, like there's all this wild energy, and I'm like, oh, I need to go settle in. I meditated a lot this morning, by the way. Prior to this, I've been meditating all morning. Like, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. Because it's a lot of energy, and I think it can be overwhelming a lot. For me, it is. And it's funny because our house is really full. Really full.
yeah. I also appreciate the observation of how it felt in my body, this excited energy to talk about what we're going to talk about today. Like as I settled in, how that shifted within my body. Like before, all of the energy was really like coming out. Like I felt it in all of my limbs, up against my skin. Like my muscles were a little tight. I'm like, yes, let's go. And now it all feels very centered. It all feels like it's coming from one place instead of all over. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, when we do that, it's like there is that like, I want everyone to know. And that's like something I feel like every time I come to sit down for the podcast, I'm always radiating. Like I always feel like I'm projecting a lot of energy because I am so excited to talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about. And I have to remind myself not to, like, that's what I feel like is happening is like when we just radiate, we kind of tend to be like dogmatic and we can push our agenda and our purpose on people. But there's something that's so important to us is I just want you to feel the passion that I have, and then you can take it, which really is why we settle in to our bodies before we start this podcast is, hey, we all want to be communicating from our heart space and sharing this information. Not, we don't care if you take it. We want you to add it to your collection of information you've ever received in your life. Take what feels good and leave the rest behind, you know?
Yeah, we want to create it just so you have an understanding for it and an awareness to it, because then that changes everything about who you are. That in itself is what we love to witness. So, but we understand that it's iron, right? It's not. Me and Jenny always laugh. Like 5 years ago, like, would I have even been ready for all of this? And there's the answer is no, like a hard no, like no way. And it's just, you're ready when you're ready. And so I think all of us really understand that.
Well, and your thought there really just kind of led into what we wanted to talk about today. Boop. I'm always interested to see how this segue happens. And I feel like in the first couple episodes, we try to like force the segue. And nowadays it's just like, boop, boop.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the topic that we really want to talk about today is like, first off, like ultimately getting to this place of like pursuit of happiness and like what that even means. But on the journey to that is the hard no. How can you yield to that pressure? Like, okay, I'm feeling like I need to do this thing and I want to do this thing, but there's a hard no there. How can I yield back just a little bit and allow for the yes? And I feel like that is so important on this journey because everything that we do is pushing you to an edge. Every meditation, every yoga practice, every sound bath, everything is like pushing you to the edge of who you are. Whether that's comfortable or uncomfortable, that's up to you and your journey and where you're at. But everything is putting you there to the edge of something. And edges are beautiful and they're important. And we do need a little bit of edge. Otherwise, we're flopping around, right? Like we need our skin. We need those things. But how do we, when we hit an edge, how do we yield to it and allow for space, for information, for experiences, for situations to occur to create the yes or to find the yes instead of yielding and like just ramming into it? Or I think that also the other that is not talked about enough is the retreat. The retreat back into yourself and not fighting for something that you want to do.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was sitting there thinking as you were talking about this, and my advanced breathwork class is exactly what this is. Like advanced breathwork, what we're teaching and what we're finding in this class is the first like 20 minutes are hard. Like it's like you're hyperventilating and like you feel like your body wants to quit, and it's like we're running a marathon. And then the last half is like this silence, this space, exactly like what we're talking about. And I have to tell myself just to hold and just let it be, because that's when everybody, after they ran that marathon, like after they ran and they have that moment of just clarity, that's when I'm giving them like that space. I don't need to talk. I don't need them to breathe. I just need to shut up, sit down, and let the magic will happen. But like it's so beautiful because that's like how much of that is our lives, right? You run and we run and we run and we run and we're like, when you give yourself that time to like really like appreciate, man, you ran hard today, or man, that hill was a bitch. I had to run all the way up that hill today, or whatever the case might be. But when you get that time to celebrate all the little wins that we do every day.
Yeah.
Yep. And I feel like that really plays into this kind of societal norm that I think is super important that we address first and foremost, right? This idea of the pursuit of happiness. And so many people out there believe that they have to struggle for the things that they want. they have to earn them in this big way that has to be struggle. And then there isn't an appreciation for things to come easy, or even a belief that it happens at all.
Or believe that it's like money, right? Like that money's gonna make me happy. Like look at every celebrity to this day, and like every single one of them, what do they tell you? Man, money didn't make me happy. Every single one. But that's I think our society, that's what we chase is that dollar bill. And like that's what needs to change. That perception.
Well, I think we chase this idea of success, and with what is success, and is I mean, I think we can I think we interchange words so much in our society, and we really connect a lot of words that are not the same. I feel like a lot of times people talk about success being in a happy marriage. Well, maybe that's success for you. Maybe success means money. Maybe success means an insane career. Maybe like what does success mean for you? And let's stop tying success and happiness together, or joy and happiness, or peace and happiness. Like we tie all these things together that's not the definition of what those words mean. And words are like, this is totally a tangent. I'm taking us on like a tiny tangent for like 1 second.
It's important. I hear you.
Words are so important, and taking a minute to really think, what does that word, because a word, we created language to describe an essence. And we go to school and we get the dictionary, right? And then we get these words and we have to memorize them. We have to memorize what they spell. But what I think is missing in the world, what I feel, I feel that this is missing from the world is, what does that essence mean to you? What is that deeper feeling that happens, instead of just saying, okay, well, success and happiness are this and this, like this is the definition of success and happiness. What is the essence of that? Because I feel like if we knew what the essence of happy was more and sooner in our life, we would start to feel happiness along the journey, because we would have those moments of sensation that are happy. And I feel too like people who start to find joy in the journey are people who have found the essence of happiness, and they've realized that it doesn't come. Money and happiness are not the same. They are their own essences, and they can intertwine. I'm not going to say that money can't make you happy, because yes, maybe because you can provide, maybe because you can have the things that you want to have, but it's not the money that makes you happy. It's the essence that comes with that for you. And I feel that's really important to start to enjoy the journey. You have to start to learn these essences behind the words that we're using, and then you feel your own little bits of tingly excitements.
And I feel like those essences are so individualized for each person.
Yeah.
And I feel like so many people are just out there looking for a magic formula. Just tell me what to do so I can be happy. And they're constantly seeking that advice outside of themselves when all of the answers are found within. What does that essence mean to you? And as you navigate your life, are you noticing those essences as they spark inside of you? And are you following that? Which I think also leads into this idea of yielding.
Are you giving yourself that space for that essence and that sparkle? Are you to even be aware that it's there? Right? Yeah. Like how are you giving yourself that opportunity to witness it? Like those are
Well, I'm
moments.
questioning. Like, are you giving yourself the moment, and then are you asking yourself the questions of, hey, could this be different? Sorry, I cut you off. I got excited.
No, you're good. And it feels like it was funny when you were talking about what was my definition of happiness. And at one point in my life it was not to die. And how like it was so simple, right? Don't die and everything will be okay. Like that was like, like a full year of my life. And man, how it's dark, but also how simple and how beautiful, because what it allowed me to become, right? That mindset allowed me in that space just to hold, not to die, right? Not to let this body fail me. That's it. Like that's my only goal. Like, and it's kind of funny because everybody asking, what are my rules? And rule number one is don't die. And it's like, yeah, that's like, while we're here, like, that's the whole point. And so, but after that, just to give yourself that space, like to like win that. Yeah, I'm not dead. Oh my gosh, I can breathe. I can feel my heartbeat, my pulse. I can have clear thoughts, right? Or I can think about a million things at once. Like whatever is your jam. like, but just how much space do you give yourself? And how much do you give yourself? Like after you do it, once you go, man, that was awesome. Like the ab boy, right? That's another thing. Cause like you got to recognize like, the hard work and like doing nothing sometimes can be the hardest thing for people. I know it was for me, but sometimes we're forced into that lane. And you just got to be appreciative and you have to like have gratitude for it. And then once you do that, your mental health just starts to blossom because you have all these awarenesses to how you really feel. Because we're always being told, feel this way, you should feel that way, and everything should feel great. As long as you're in this box, everything should feel perfect. There's no box.
Well, I love like this is making me think of Roxy a little bit about our conversation of like unconditional love that we had the other day. And it's what is this? So Roxy and I were chatting, just having conversation, and I was telling her I was doing some contemplations about unconditional love in a meditation. And I kind of came to this place of like I love categories. I really love categories. It's kind of a weird thing. Like I love categories and patterns. You guys will start to know that about me. It's really interesting. But it's like as I was contemplating, I was thinking about unconditional love in these categories, and it's like, what do I need to feel safe enough to receive unconditional love, and what do I need to feel safe enough to give unconditional love? And it's like you're talking about is what needs to hold me? What kind of things need to be happening around me for my body to soften enough to allow for the sensation of love to come? Because we have to feel something, like, to be able to give love to someone, we have to be able to feel that in some aspect. And I know, and like even as I'm saying it, I'm like, oh, I don't want to say that, but it's true. I really do think and feel you got to have a little piece of that essence. And I know that a lot of these concepts, they're bred into our DNA. The way that we feel things, the experiences that we have, our connection to a collective consciousness, right, is this connection to these feelings, and we get to pull from them. And when we have an experience in our life that's like, oh, that's happy. Like, have you guys ever heard of The Giver? Most people had to read that book in school. Like, this is what I'm talking, and I'm all over the place, but I think you guys are following. Like, you have to, like, you've got to yield enough to receive these feelings. And in The Giver, there's a man that holds all the memories of the whole community, and everyone else doesn't really have memories. They're in a box. And there's always a giver and a receiver, and this boy is the receiver, and he uses his hands, Reiki, uses his hands to teach this boy these different things. And he doesn't tell him the story. He uses his hands and shows him the story. He shows him what color feels like. He shows him, he can never know that that's like, this is red. This is what red is. Because the boy can describe it and he can feel that essence. And I think that's so much to do with what we're talking about here. For us to love unconditionally, we have to feel safe enough to feel love. And then we have to feel safe enough in giving it also. And those are two very different things. And we have to be able to yield, first off, because love is so hard. Because we are all a little heartbroken. And that's something that it was in the same practice that all of these crazy thoughts in my brain were coming out in. His last question is, what is it that holds you back the most? And for me, I was like, wow, my heart's broken. Like, how beautiful to find that space of like, I just want like Jerry, I want to be happy. I want to live. I just want my heart to be full.
Yeah. That was a lot.
Thoughts.
I feel like we were just anchoring that in with a moment of silence. Like, that was beautiful. And I definitely feel like it ties into everything that we're talking about, right? Whether that's success, happiness, love, right? We all have a different frame point of what that means. And the only thing that we have to go off of is our past, how we were raised. Like, did we ever experience it? What did that look like for us? And what does our life look like now? Are we even open to receiving it any differently than we've experienced it in the past?
Yeah.
Are we open to new ideas and new perspectives and new feelings to allow that in to see what comes up for you? And so many of my clients, we're so used to living in survival mode because we've had to. Our bodies don't necessarily recognize that we're safe now. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to allow us to soften that outer shell that we've put up with the best of intentions, right? To protect us, to protect the people that we love. And in doing that, we kind of wall off our heart to those new experiences and feelings, or even to expanding the ones that we know. So I feel like for me, that was a huge part of my process, was even recognizing that those walls existed in the first place and going down that road of contemplation and self-reflection and saying, how did we get here? What does this feel like? And what serves me moving forward?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like while you were talking, I was just thinking about it's okay to have those walls, and so often we judge them. And when we speak about the work is really the surrender. Like, how can we the work that we do is constantly reminding ourselves to surrender, constantly reminding ourselves to go to the edge of comfort and surrender there. It's not about pushing forward. It's not about always needing to be more or do more, which I feel like is where people go down a path of maybe a little more complicated spiritual situation. It is when they're wanting to push that all the time. They're always wanting to push past that edge. And I think that can drive you a little bit crazy in a way because it's always hard. It's always complicated. Instead of saying, I'm just going to go to this edge place and I'm just going to allow for the journey to meet me as well. And so much of that is the surrender that we call work because you're constantly, again, trying to remind yourself, like, it's okay to do less because we have to reprogram what our brain says. We can't be silent. We can't sit still.
Programming piece is so important because, and this also ties into the whole definition of words things, right? Some people hear surrender as giving up. And so can we redefine what that means for us and recognize how that really does serve our highest good?
It's surrendering is not giving up. That's a bad way to look at it. It's quite the opposite, right? It's like you're giving yourself this opportunity. In my paranormal classes, we do this exercise where everybody puts their hands out just so they can feel the energy. And it's amazing what happens in places just of silence, right? I'm not even doing anything. I'm just letting them experience like literal spirits floating around them. And just to watch their expressions in their faces, like those are the most powerful moments. And it's moments that aren't like there's no noise, right? There's no chatter. It's just that's why meditation is so powerful because we get to be in those spaces and just feel and to exist and to like really know what the energy is around us, whether that's paranormal or whether it's just you're out on your lawn feeling or hugging a tree, whatever that is. Like just connecting and allowing that energy to exist within you and all around you. It's once you get into it, it's like a drug. You get so addicted to it because it's how you recharge your battery, right? It's like when you get older or if you have chronic illnesses, things like this. Like some people that I deal with is I'm always like on this energy train where I'm trying to find energy. And I've found the most energy in meditation and like holding still and like meditating for 10 days, right? Like doing crazy things, but things that I would never expect made me feel like a new human, like a total reset. But it's because I allowed space and even though it was scary, whether that's the darkness or silence or whatever that is, that space is where so much of my self-confidence like allowed me to let go of my ego, just to let that little bastard just kick him, let him go. And it was so beautiful for me because that in itself allowed me to witness, a lot of other magic. But
Yeah, and I think that really leads beautifully into this idea of discernment for people who are listening, right? I think the big the big question that we have as we kind of navigate this path is how much of this is growing pains and how much of this that I need to just allow and work through and continue with, and how much of this is like, okay, time to yield, time to retreat, time to like take a breath. So how do you guys gauge that for yourself? What's your inner compass that lets you know if this is just growing pains or if it's like, time to pause?
For me, I think it's just when my emotions aren't clear. Like when my emotions are like, I'm happy and I'm sad and I'm angry and I'm mad and I'm like kind of confused emotionally. That's when I know like I have too much energy, too much shit's going on, too much life's happening. And I need to like just like breath. Thank God I teach breath work. Like it's kind of funny because like I probably do it the most. And it's always like I always tell my students, like this is just as much for me as it is for you. And I laugh because like that's what all our old teachers used to tell us. I think that's when I know I've arrived, right? I'm now a professor. But it's so funny because that's exactly what I need. Like, and I think when those emotions, do you know what I mean? Like when you're just so emotional, like over the dumbest stuff. Like it feels like it. But the reality is it's important to you. And so there's value to it. So but yeah, tailor apart sometimes, right? That awareness is great.
I feel sometimes yes. Yes, and, I feel I wanna speak to both of those things. I wanna speak to Roxy's question, then I wanna speak to this place of, like, awareness can be really hard because I think all these things for me, I feel like all these things really tie together because it's as you go down this path, you do start to feel more, and you are more aware of things, and it does create those questions of, "Okay, is this the edge? Is this the edge? Is this the edge?" And I always for me, the first thing I wanna say, and then we'll read into this other thing, which is gonna make you guys all laugh a lot, and it always makes my students laugh when I say this, but I'm gonna say the serious thing first. I find my edge when like, I'm looking down because my yoga mat is right here. When I'm sitting somewhere and I feel just fidgety, when I just cannot sit still, I know I've gone over. I know I've gone past. And so maybe that's something to think about as you begin this journey or as you've been on this journey is sometimes we find it because we've gone past and that's okay. You can go past that edge. You can a little bit and it's okay to pull back. And earlier on I had said, well, there's yielding and there's retreating. And what I see so many people do is they go past that edge and then they want to retreat and run back the other direction and therefore this practice doesn't work for you because that is what you keep doing. You keep going to the edge and you're right fucking there. Like you are right there. You are ready. You are ready to leave behind this old you. You're ready to leave survival generally is when I see this. And then you're just one more step and then you retreat. And that is as a teacher, that is literally the hardest thing for me to see is when I know someone is right there. And they haul back for the woods. And I'm like, "Ah, you were there. You were there. One more step, one more meditation, one more moment, and you were gonna have this clarity that you never even imagined before. And
That you gotta push yourself, right? You gotta challenge yourself. And like when it gets hard, that's when it gets good. That's when all the ahas happen is right before you're ready to quit and give up. Like if you just like going, like just keep going. 'Cause holy shit, it's worth it.
get there. Just sit in that place. Like the heart is there. Just sit. Like, and I know you're saying going because you mean just keep going, coming back to practice.
Yeah,
You don't
don't go backwards.
Jerry's not when he says going, he's not meaning like keep running forward. He's meaning just keep coming. Like just keep doing what you're doing because you are so right there. And
It's not tying in like a lateral moment, a movement.
yeah. And I just think it's oh, if there was anything that I ever could like if I could have like a magic hall pass that like this one sentence I could always get someone to understand what I mean, it would be that one. Like you are like literally road broken. Like you are so ready to go over the hump and just don't retreat. You can hold. You can hold where you're at. You can stay where you are and where you've been. Just don't go running back.
Do you think that, man, like, what are we talking about? Like, kind of going from like a victim, kind of like a victim mentality to like somebody that's healed and somebody that's healing mentality. You know what I mean? Is that kind of where we're
I don't think so. I think I don't know that it really matters what. I think that it's duality in general. Like when you're leaving, for me, I always think about living in survival and then finding peace. That's usually the big thing for people who come and see me is they're in this place where they they feel like they have to do all this stuff just to survive. And it's like, let it all go. You don't have to be all this stuff. Maybe if you work hard to do everything, you could find peace and you could realize that you don't need everything. That's generally the people who find my way, but I think very similar, like when you're leaving this space of being in this victimhood and then you're moving on to realize that nothing was happening to you, was happening for you, that's also kind of in that space as well, which is hard.
Yeah, I think it's very like I've always kind of felt like it's going from like existing to just existing. Like I am alive. Okay, now what? Now I have to live. Now living and existing are two different things. And so when you want to move into that space, when you want to actually feel the life that you so fucking tried so hard to hold on to, now what are you doing with it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question, just again, for people listening. As we're talking about, again, how do we decide, is this time, like, is this too much? Is this not for me? Is this not my path? Versus, is this just growing pains? How do I know if I'm supposed to stay on the path and continue and just like, even just yield, or if this path isn't the right one for me? Like, aside from questioning, because I have a whole line of questioning that I help my clients through when they get to this space. But if they were trying to recognize it within themselves, what does that look like for you guys?
I think like really holding space and trusting your intuition. Like me as a teacher, it's been really really important for me to just really trust my intuition and not have to have everything scripted, not have to have everything written down in an outline, right? I can happy to
Experience, though, a lot of these people who are in this space, they don't trust their intuition yet. They're not in that space yet, you know?
and how sad because and that's kind of what society's taught us, right? It's not to trust your intuition. And that's what I think when we're allowed to actually sit in that space and allow our own thoughts to actually surface, that's your intuition. And if it's like I need to be here, you're gonna hear a yes. Or if I need to be here, you're gonna hear a hell no. And once you tune into that, like you can't ignore it. And so I think that's what we try to teach. I know I try to teach at the very beginning of anybody that comes in what we practiced. It's just holding space for that because that's so important because that's where you get to figure out that this is real. Not because it's me or like certain teachers don't need the way to be because you feel good in that moment. And like, how cool is it that we get to provide that space? Like, and those ahas that they learned from that.
Yeah, I feel like, when you're on I just don't feel like this is really a black and white question because the answer that I want to give to this question is, well, it's a journey and it's not just one way. I don't feel like it's just one. When you're in a situation, when you're on this path, you're gonna have many teachers. You're gonna have many experiences. It's not just gonna be one person. It's not like, oh, am I trying to play basketball? Like that's not what it is. And it's more I always try to really get people to see that this journey, this whatever the hell it is that we're doing here, for me, I'm really in this place of like I think I'm here to collect experiences and just experience different essences. Like that's what I feel like I'm supposed to do and help other people feel peaceful enough to do the same thing. And that comes for me through relationship. And I really love Carolyn Mess's work to invite you into that early on in your journey because I feel like she does such a good job of getting you ready for these sort of things. When she talks about anatomy of the soul, I really love anatomy of soul because it talks about these covenants, these contracts that you have with yourself, and she connects them to the commandments. And when I first heard that this idea of you have commandments to your own self, I really do feel as though we come to this earth with we have programming. Our bodies are not stupid. I feel our bodies know the path that we're going to be on. That's in us somehow. And it's not that they know on the 17th Tuesday of 2025, you're going to get hit by a car. It's more of like these are some of the experiences that you're going to have in your life. And this is going to help you navigate. I really do feel that universe creates these situations, but we have to think bigger. Sometimes we only want to think about, should I get should I get the Jeep or should I get the Tesla? Like those are the things that we concern ourselves so much with. But that's, to me, and through reading Carolyn Mess's work, I that's not what it's about. These people, these experiences that come into our life are these contracts that are supposed to help us find the deeper definitions of these words that we use willy-nilly, like love, like happiness, like peace, like surrender, survival, mindful. Like these words have so much more meaning to them than what Webster puts there. And it's our journey to find that connection and partnership with other people. And so when someone, if you're questioning it, you're questioning, should I go to this class? Trust the first yes or no. And if you're constantly getting no, what is it that I'm resisting? If you're finding yeses somewhere, follow that. But if you're asking yourself all the time, should I go to this class or should I go to that class? Clearly you want to be doing something. Why are you saying no to everything? And that's, again, going back to this yielding to the yes. Okay, this is hard for me. This is hard for me. This is hard for me. Okay, how can I find the yes now? So don't put so much pressure. It's not bigger. There's not going to be a bigger answer. We're not going to give you a bigger answer to this question. It is simply saying, should I be here? Yes or no? And if I'm constantly saying no, that's something there is not serving me. What I resist must persist, and it will persist, and you will have more opportunity. The universe doesn't give you one opportunity to win. So just relax, allow yourself to go on the journey because it's okay.
And it's kind of funny because the journey is it's kind of, we have this little thing in our house that the guru is in you. Right. We like about teachers of like trying to find the right teacher. Like a lot of it just all starts in here. It's all about you. And like when you are ready, the right teacher, they'll be there for you. Right.
Yeah.
Whether they're good or not, that doesn't matter. What they teach you and what you feel and what you bring, that's what matters. And that's what you lean into. And once you lean into that and like really understand and like also know that we're powerful, like we're manifesting creatures. So like when we choose the right words and we say the right things and we set ourselves up, whether that's a vision board or you're just in your nightly prayers or whatever the case may be, like we're powerful and like hold space for that. Let that exist in you and not like it's not always outside of you. And I think that's what we're talking about here is like how important is that to really know yourself and allow for that to even exist. Like we're starting. And, it just starts with a breath. It starts with just taking a minute and like giving yourself that opportunity to really feel.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jasmine, I'm so glad that you spoke to this idea of so many different answers. Right. That's so much of the work in the Akashic records. Like you don't go in for a yes or no response. You go in for a deeper level of understanding. I personally don't believe that there is a right or wrong path for anyone. It's this question of, if I take this path, how does that serve my highest good? If I take this path instead, how does that serve my highest good? Because whatever path you take, the universe is going to continue to put opportunities in your path. Whatever path that is, it's going to present different teachers for you along that path for you to get to where you came here in the first place. And so I guess my best advice is to try to release as much judgment from yourself and the situation as you can. And just be like so brutally honest with yourself. Usually there's a fear, there's an insecurity, there's something that's coming up for you. And usually when it's fear, it's the opposite of the thing that they want in the first place. And for me, that's a really big indicator of like, okay, this is just outside my comfort zone, but this is something that I really want. So I'm just going to yield for a minute and look for the yes. And for me, what that means is like, this is something that I am really interested in, but like if it's too many people or something, like I'm afraid of people, social situations, right? Maybe I'll schedule an individual session or, like it's just looking, how can I create the situation that I want that feels good for me, that still gives me what I have. And like to point out what Jerry said, yes, we do have the ability to manifest those things. We have the ability to create those circumstances for our highest good that won't always be ideal within our comfort zone because growing pains are real. We are meant to experience discomfort. Um, but those opportunities exist for you. So my advice is to look for them and or create them.
Sometimes those fears, like sometimes those are the best lessons. That's why I love teaching about fears. Just because sometimes, man, when you do those things that like you resist the most, once you get over the hump and once you get this new perspective on what that fear was and now is, there's so much power in that.
I love fear. I mean, my first ever tattoo says beyond fear lies freedom because it is. Once we, that was a really huge push for me for a long time. Like if I was afraid of something, then I guess similar to you, I kind of had forgot about that until the fear quote came into my mind. But I got that tattooed on my body because I never wanted to be ruled by fear. I never wanted to turn my back to fear. And it wasn't that I wanted to be this adrenaline junkie in that sort of way. But what I really wanted is I really wanted to not let the fear stop me from doing what I wanted to do. And the the thing that came into my mind is like the no but. No, that's not quite right, but this version of that. And I really love how you brought that up, Roxy, because you can find a teacher and it can be too intimidating to I'm not a huge group person. I'm probably never gonna go to a situation where there's 200 people doing breath work at one time. That could that Jerry's here for that every day. He loves that, and I think that that's just this is such an indicator of there's always a path for everyone. Like our paths are all there's similarities in our past, but there's also huge differences in how we choose to practice this as well. And so finding that no, but in this situation, yes, is also what we're talking about. It's another version of what we're speaking of here. If you are getting a solid no, okay, that's great. Move on to something different. But if you're getting a no, but that's fun. Explore that.
And trust your intuition. Because like once you do, it'll lead to your passions. And then once you're living a life full of passion, not awful.
Yeah. You it's so funny. I think then you get to this fun place of deciding, well, what's success for you? Success for me looks totally different than success for you guys. Well, maybe not 100% you guys because we're kind of tied in some things, but like and it's all in the feeling. Like we are all very tied into the feeling. We talk about this all the time in our studio. What is the feeling that you have in an event? How do you know an event was successful or how do you know an experience was successful? It's the how you feel about it. And it doesn't necessarily matter the number or the prestige or the whatever other bullshit that comes along with things. It's just how do you feel inside yourself after an encounter or a situation or experience. That's how you know. At least for me, it just does.
Yeah, I just gauged it by how much emotion did we move. Like, 'cause I think that's a very healthy way to gauge it. Like, was I able to move emotion, whether that's laughter, anger, sadness, crying. Like, I think that's like the whole point of what we do is like, how do we like hold space so that you can feel your emotions, so that you can let those emotions do what they're supposed to do. And it's like, yeah, how often is it that we like that? So that's my meter. And like, how many people like we always laugh about how many people do you make cry tonight? Like that's like our little like that's our yummy yum. Like we love that stuff. But it's because we know people are in that space. That, and like you can't like sometimes words mess it up. And like sometimes we just say hold that space and like get to see those cheers fall. And what do we like? We always it's like don't let the don't like your cheers away. Let them off. Let them like experience that all of it. Don't interrupt it. It's it creates beautiful moments.
Yeah. When you allow yourselves to yield to any moment, it's just gonna just experience it a little longer. Like, we're here to experience life. But I believe our purpose here is to experience things in third dimension that is just deeper and harder and heavier, but also like way more powerful and just it is deeper. Like you feel things in this deeper way. And I think that's really lovely and really overwhelming. But if we hold because we can't feel it as quickly in higher dimensions if you want to get into that like weirdness, which I'm sure eventually we'll really start to go into that place. But just we're here to feel.
That intensity. That intensity. Pull it up.
And I love that you brought this up because I think it kind of segues into our next point, right? Is as we find ourselves in that space of struggle, how do we find joy within that? And that doesn't mean like gaslighting the struggle, gaslighting all of the challenging feelings that we are having or suppressing them and just like, oh no, everything's great. It's not great. Like, this is really hard right now. And I am overwhelmed and I'm angry. And I have so much gratitude for the people that are holding space for me to feel those feelings, right? Like, how there is duality in every single situation. And I feel like humans in general are just trying to avoid struggle. But to be human is to struggle. So, how can we learn to embrace that and find the joy within it because it does exist? So, what does that practice look like for the two of you?
I want to say to go first, Jerry.
In our household, we call it the wave. So we know that there's always going to be a wave. Like, and we have emotional wave. We have good, we have bad days. And I think just holding an awareness and like having a meter, like, hey, like, and communicate with the people that you love that are all around you. Make sure that they understand where you, um, because, things are going to happen. And they actually, like, we do like a lot of retreats in our household. And so, like, once you get back from a retreat or some type of energy conference, whenever the case may be, it's hard. Like, those first days, we know that's going to be like this lull because of like, for whatever reason, it just happens after retreats. Like, you get in this like gratitude space. And so, just having that awareness to that wave is what we, and the only way of knowing that is communicating with your partners, right? Letting them know, hey, this is where I'm in. I need a day, and asking for what you need, and being vocal. You know what I mean? And asking, yeah, really, really being clear with what your needs are. And sometimes that's a cave, right? Sometimes that's a trip to the mountains, whatever that is. But yeah,
Yeah, what I really heard from you, Jerry, was like not being silent. Like when I think you can find peace. I never personally want to shoot from like struggle to like pure joy and bliss. Like that's just like it's such a junk. It's such a general. And I also feel, yeah, it's very sharp, and it's also going to, in my opinion, it invites the drop again. If you talk about energy, if we want to talk energetically, right? If we're down here and then we want to be up here, well, the likelihood we're going to flop right back down as well. But if we just try to go up a little bit, um, hey, how about just not being in total despair? Like, can we just go one vibrational? Like, is it like Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a really good thing to look at in this place, and then there's also a there's actually like a scale, and I can't think of what it's called, but it has like all of the emotions on it, and like sadness and depression are near in the bottom, and it talks about like the actual frequency that those emotions move. So when we're in this place of these lower vibration energies, they're just moving much slower up and down. And then when we get more, we're going up and like we're really just doing it, you know? And so my suggestion to find peace in your path, to find peace in struggle, is to not try to change it so much, but try to, and I think Gary was really speaking to this too, is try to just be with it. Don't kind of pull yourself out of that space, because what's happening is you're creating more disharmony in your body. And when we go into lots of my meditation groups are actually really about this place, because I really love to work in chronic pain. And when you find chronic pain and then you create these compensation patterns for that, because instead of sitting with that discomfort and working through that discomfort of your body part, you've now found ways to work around it. You've now put it in this little compartment and you're holding it in, instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to sit with the struggle. And when we start to pull those struggles, we start to pull those experiences, that pain, that constriction in your body out and just look at it, it just wants to be heard. So I would say if you really are in this place of struggle, you really are having a hard time, you don't need to be silent about it. Get yourself in a place that will hold space for that for you, so that you can experience it in a safe way. So finding safety in your struggle, because if you're not safe, if you don't feel safe, there's nothing that we can say to you. There's nothing that can be said in this podcast. If your body does not feel safe, you're not going to pull out of these sort of things. That's the reason it's the first chakra, right? It's at the base of our spine. It's at the beginning of flow movement for us. the Kundalini won't rise past that place. And so if you really are in that struggle, find safety. And again, that comes back to the original question, is yielding to the discomfort. You're going to always hit these moments. As you hit the edge, you're going to run into these spaces. That's why there's 7 chakras. There's not 4,000, because we always go back to the first one. Every time, every experience we're in, every meditation group you've ever been in with me ever, I will always speak to saying your body is safe here, because you can experience it. And then you can let that struggle itself is going to tell you the story. It's going to tell you the way to let it go. Your body will tell you the way to let that go if you just stop, not trying to make it be anything more than it needs to be, not trying to do more, just be with the struggle. And I promise you, your body will tell you how to release it, and it will just feel amazing.
And just show up. All you gotta do.
Yeah. That was lovely advice. And I think it's so
Every once in a while, I say some stuff, and I don't want to listen, you should celebrate when you channel some shit straight from whatever, the big man, the big sun, the big woman universe. When it just comes down and you're just like, hell yes, you should celebrate that for a second. That's how I felt when I just said all that. I was like, damn, girl, you are fucking brilliant. Every once in a while in class, I'm just like, wow, that was for you too, Jasmine. Good job. Anyway, sorry, go on.
Celebrate. No, what are we talking about? We talking about celebrating those wins, dude. That's exactly what we talked about in the beginning. So hell yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes a win is just allowing yourself to feel. I remember early on in my journey with shadow work, I really struggled with those big feelings, and I was suppressing them, and I wasn't listening to my body. And I was like in a terrible, deep, dark depression that everyone around me was really worried. They didn't know if I was going to be able to pull myself out of it. And it got to the point where I had no choice but to sit and listen to it. And my ability to sit and listen to it, by the end of the day, sometimes that was the only good thing that happened. But I was like, that was really, really hard. And I am tired and I am frustrated and I just want this to be over. And I am really proud of myself for holding space for myself for the first time in forever. And sometimes all that little awareness, just that teeny tiny bit, that can make the biggest difference in tomorrow and the next day and the next day, because you allow yourself to build on that one thing. And I think, again, this goes back to the idea of chasing the bigness, right? A lot of our idea of happiness is vacation mode, right? We don't live life in vacation mode. Life is not a giant vacation. We are adults. We are humans. We have responsibilities and things that have to be done. And we have the opportunity to do that through a wide variety of lenses. We can see that as a struggle, and we can see that as an opportunity, as a privilege that we have, and have so much gratitude for it. Both of those feelings are incredibly valid. And like Jerry said, that's a giant wave, right? Some days are going to be easier than others.
And sometimes the vacation, holy shit, sometimes those could be way harder. They're not. Sometimes you need a vacation from your vacation. So, don't always expect vacation to make you happy either. It's just nothing's given. Nothing's given. It's all about that experience. And if it's a low wave and you're on vacation, guess what? You're expressing that shadow a little bit, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember who it was who told me. They're like, every time I go on vacation with my partner, he just has a dark night of the soul. It's like he gets away from the house and he can just let it all go. And it is just that's what he does. And so knowing your cycle, knowing what you need in any particular time, it all comes from this journey of just sitting with yourself. If you can sit with yourself in emotions, your body will tell you the way out. That's all we do. That's literally all we teach you, by the way. Spoiler alert, behind the curtain, whenever you see those commercials, oh, I've lost 400 pounds with this one thing, but they never tell you what the one thing is. The one thing is you have to learn to sit with your emotions. And if you can't sit with your body, you're never going to know the answer. If you can sit with your body, you're going to know the answer. That's it. That's all we're trying to do.
And it's one of the hardest things that all of us experience every single day. And that's why we teach it. It's because we know the importance of it. You know how much it can like benefit us and benefit those that we love that are around us. And once you get into it, it's this like energy trap because it feels pretty awesome. But it's hard. It's really hard to like be in those emotions that are just really tough and they feel yuck and they feel like nothing's on your side for me. Wow. But guess what? It's a due day every day. Every day this stuff comes up. It's worth it. You're not dead. You know, you get an opportunity every single day and you just have to kind of go for it. Um, but yeah, that's what we teach. That stillness, like that getting to that space to where you actually just really hear yourself.
I love the word opportunity that you guys keep using. I I really tried to use that so much more. And my favorite like time that I did it is I think people don't use it enough when it comes to money because we think we connect money and going back to this pursuit of happiness, right? This joy and happiness. It uh, generally it comes from being able to do whatever you want to do. And a lot of times the ticket to that is money because money gives you opportunity because you can buy things with money that you want to have. And at the beginning of the summer, I got an opportunity, aka I got a bunch of money. Yeah, I know, and I had all this opportunity with that money, and so I'm really trying to speak of money as more of opportunity than money, because I love money and I also love opportunity. And yeah, with that opportunity, we bought a side by side, and that side by side created all kinds of opportunities for joy and happiness, which Parker's doing right now. He's like, yeah, he had a whole day planned, and he's like, I'm gonna take this opportunity to go hang out with my brother. And I'm like, yes, because that's what brings you happiness. He took an opportunity that he enjoyed, and now he is having a good time, and therefore called me and said, hey, can you cancel my doctor's appointment and the rest of my day so that I can go and have a good time? And I'm like, yes, I will do that for you because I want you to be happy. And I think that's how you yeah. Take opportunities. Take the opportunities to do the thing that you wanna do, and your money is also opportunity. So what are you doing with your money? Sorry. What are you doing with that money opportunity that you have and don't feel bad about having more opportunity than other people.
Yeah. We like in most of our jobs and most of the places we work, we're given like sick days and personal days and like take your personal days, right? Even take your sick days for your mental health. Like it's there for you, right? Most companies are aware of this. Most companies will support you. They want you happy. They want you healthy. They want you whole. Um, and that goes for any community group. So know that there's places out there that are here for you that can support you, and that it doesn't have to be hard. And you don't have to do it alone. You know,
That I think it's really important that we normalize the conversation of asking for help in this also. And I feel like as a society, we're starting to be better about that. Um, but you can't ask for what you don't know that you need, right? So our goal in this podcast overall is to help you raise your own self-awareness. Ask yourself these meaningful questions, have these conversations with yourself and with someone that is genuinely safe for you. And when we talk about safety, we don't necessarily mean physical safety. Obviously, yes, that's always true. But we also mean emotional safety. And that means like when you go and share these challenging feelings that you're having, are you sharing those with someone that's going to allow you to feel those, or are you sharing them with someone who's trying to shift you to help you to feel better? And are you seeking those people out so you can source that good feeling from others instead of from yourself? Like these are all beautiful thoughts of contemplation. And as you do raise your awareness around this, then you can reach out to your support system. You can ask them, hey, can you cancel the rest of my day so that I can feed my soul? Thank you for supporting me. Yeah. And I know that probably wasn't always the case in your relationship, that he could feel like you could do that. Like that's a huge win, I feel like, to be celebrated for both of you.
Well, and I really love that Jerry took it to this workplace because I really feel like all of this really does go together when we talk about pursuit of happiness. So often we want to be successful. And therefore, we have to have successful jobs, which means we have to work really hard at them. And this shows up a lot in the horse world. Like, you're allowed to have lots of hobbies, by the way. Like, ding ding. This is not the topic of today, but I also feel like it's important here when we're speaking of pursuit of happiness. You can find happiness in lots of different ways, and you don't have to find happiness in the same one way each time. And that was really a big thing for me. And yes, please take your days off. It is not, you do not get an award for having the most days you haven't gone to work. Like, going to work every single day and having this stockpile of leave that you've never used, that always drives me bananas. It drives me bananas. And yes, take the sick day. You know what? I have absolutely taken sick days because the weather was phenomenal outside and I wanted to go riding. And I did. And I didn't even, I'm so grateful that my boss is amazing. And I'm like, hey, it's about to be winter. I don't have very many good barn days left. I'm gonna take leave today. I'm gonna take a mental health day today. And she's like, get it, sis. Like, you have to share yourself and you have to, again, ask for support. And support doesn't always mean having to go to a therapist and bearing your soul to people. In this last few minutes, we talked about several ways of supporting people. I mean, I called and canceled Parker's day. Who cares? Whatever. I told him this morning when he left, I said, hey, how long are you going to be gone for? Not because I wanted to know, like, that he needed to get back, but because I'm like, please just be gone all day. Go. Like, don't come back. If maybe you should take some clothes, and if you decide you're gonna camp out there, do it, because both of those people that are on that trip do not take enough time for themselves. So anytime, so just know, like, that's other ways, and be mindful of the people who are with you. I get so excited about this because I'm just like, oh my god. How do you support your people who are around you to also feel like they can take time, they can pursue the things that make them happy? Because so often when people come to me as couples, it's because they've lost sight of what makes their partner happy. And all they want to do is make their partner happy. But it's like, what is that for them?
Well, and like, is your partner a safe space for you? Right. And now are you that safe space for your partner? Right. And they trust to come to you. Like, ask yourself those questions because I think that's really important. Right. And sometimes the answer is no, right? Sometimes I'm not a safe space for Jenny and vice versa. Like, but as long as we can communicate that and know that, again, going back to those waves, right? And like, if I'm not in a space where I can help out, right? And I know it's just going to cause more problems because, again, it's just going back to that listening and like really hearing yourself and really communicating and like asking for what you really need, right? And because when you're in there, when you're on the opposite end of that wave and you're in that charge and you're able to give so much, and you're able to actually help people with such clarity and with such love and focus. Like, it's just, the reward is so great when you give yourself that space.
Yeah. And knowing that your partner, and Roxy is like, I know, and the inside of her is like, yes, here's your partner in safe space for you. This is our favorite conversation. I feel too like a whole other episode, guys. Let me hear Brett. This thing's a whole other episode. This is like, all of us really love, Roxy and I particularly work in relationships, and we love relationships, and Jerry and Jenny are on their own little hippie relationship together. It's not, but I really want to just also say too that just the same as you don't find happiness, like, you don't have to just find happiness in one way. You also don't have to just have one safe space. And a person, I'm really a huge advocate of, like, you can have it. Like, it takes a village to be as well, not just to raise children, not just to do all these. It takes a village for you to feel like a safe person. And it's okay if one person is not your safe space for everything. It's okay. That does not mean your relationship is failing. It's okay.
And I would really urge you to have more than one safe space. Like, that's okay too. Like, that's
Yeah.
okay. Like, it doesn't have to be like the one place, like, that's my one place. Like, don't do that to yourself. Like, allow the growth to happen. Like, I have a safe space at Apple, a safe space at Ogden, I've got a safe space at St. George. Literally put yourself on the map so everywhere you go, you have a place that you know that you can go be when you're in that lull and you're in that wave and it's big shitty. Make sure you give yourself that space.
Yes. And I am going to cut this topic off because this is going to be our next episode.
How do we find a safe space? Yes.
100%. We need to find a safe space. I would even go so far as to say it is unhealthy to have only one safe space and vice versa. That's a lot of pressure.
I agree. Yes. As long as we can say just that one last piece, I do agree. It is unhealthy to have one safe space. We don't say absolutes very often, but I think that's one.
I would agree with that. But so stay tuned until next episode of In Peace We Rest. That's the name of our podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. We really hope that today's conversation helped to spark some questions for yourself. And as you do raise this awareness for yourself, we hope that that love that you have developed for yourself radiates outside of you to all of the beautiful connections that you have outside. And know, again, all of us at My Mind and Body Collective are here to support you. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime, whether you are local to Ogden, Utah, or you are out in the world. Virtual options are available to you. We hope that you guys have a lovely rest of your evening and that you find peace today. Thanks for listening.
Much love.